All right, I've got go time. Hello, everyone. My name is Lynn, and I'm the host of the New Year New Hobby Challenge, which is a taster week for my club, the Kaleidoscope Mandala Club. But we'll talk more about that later in the week. Really, I'm a dot mandala artist, and what I wanted to do was just share my love for dot mandalas and teach you how to make some beautiful designs. It's easier than a lot of people think, and I find it really relaxing and calming. Okay, so my name's Lynn. I'll walk you through the taster week this week. If you have not done so, I'm working on a black background today. So here's my sample. I'm going to paint on a rock. You can paint on any surfaces this evening, but you might want to get your background color painted. You can paint it black like I have. You can paint it white. I'll talk about the colors and the paint in just a few minutes, but if you get started painting your background, it will be nice and dry by the time that we start. Okay, I have made the executive decision not to put my face on camera tonight because I have been at home sick all day. I've got bronchitis. It's really bad. I'm slathered in Vicks VapoRub, and I just look really horrible. So I know it's a little unprofessional not to introduce myself with my face. I've made the decision not to do that. So I will meet you all face to video tomorrow for the next session. All right, for those of you who are just hopping on, go ahead and paint your background. Your background color, black or white, will work really well with these designs. I'm going to start talking about paint before we actually get into the design. We're going to talk a little bit about paint tools, how to make a dot, how to find the center of your design. And also I do have a giveaway tonight, so I will tell you how to enter that at the end. All right, so the first thing about dot mandala painting, let's talk about the paint. So I typically will use Decoart Americana paints. I know those aren't available easily all over the world. So really any craft paint, any acrylic paint will work fine. I find that the Decoart Americana, I like the consistency right out of the bottle, but you can also use Artiste paint in tubes and thin it down a little bit. If you need to do that tonight, just add a pinch of water. There are mediums and things you can add, but this week is for learning. As far as the consistency goes, you want it to be the consistency of melted ice cream or a thin milkshake. So you want it to move freely. So when I kind of dip and play in my paint, it doesn't hold shape. See how when I lift it up, I can drop some paint in there and it just kind of goes flat. That's kind of what I'm looking for. I don't want it to be too loose because then my paint will be runny, but I don't want it to be too thick. If it's too thick, then it won't make a proper shape. So paint consistency is super important. It doesn't matter what brand you use. You can use what you like best. Some people like brands from Walmart, the Apple Barrel. I don't prefer that, but it'll work. You can use Folk Art. I find that's a little thick for my liking, so you can add a pinch of water to it, all the way up to artist grade paint in tubes like this. So this paint right here is really thick. It's heavy bodied paint. So if you have this, you just add a little water and mix it up, and it'll thin down for you. What you don't want is runny liquid paint like this. That will not work for what we're doing. I put my paint in what they call a weld palette. It's just a palette with some depth. So whether you have a longer tray that's a little thinner, I use this one. This is from Devon Dotting Company. I really like it. If you don't have anything with some depth, what you can do is you can take your paint bottle and you can pour some in here, and you can use these as your little trays. So you can just add some paint in there, and then when you're done, pour it right back in the bottle. The twisty part of your bottle will get kind of messy, but that's a good solution in a pinch. So that's a little bit about paint. Let's talk about tools for a minute. I know that everybody is not going to have the same tools, and that is okay. When I teach, I use the Craft Smart dotting set, which is available at Michael's. And the reason why I like it, it's $5 and it's got every size that I like to use in there. So today, the sizes that I have in my set, you don't have to use the exact same set. It doesn't matter if it's the same color, if the rods are different sizes. I'm going to refer to them as their size, not as their color, because I know we're going to be using different sets of tools. So I have a 12 millimeter, a 10 millimeter, an 8 millimeter, 6 millimeter. And then I've got two styluses. I've got a large stylus that has 3mm and a 2.5mm. And then I've got a stylus that has a 1 and a 1.5. Okay. If you don't have the exact same sizes as me, or you're not quite sure which sizes you get, just line them up in order and then kind of gauge which size I'm pulling from. So if I, pull from this large end, you want to grab a large one. If I'm pulling or using a stylus, you want to use this really small tip. Okay. Making dot mandalas is all about making patterns, and I just make these patterns up. Okay. There's no right or wrong. I could have totally done them with different tools or different sizes. They look a little different, but they would be just as beautiful. Okay. So don't stress about having exactly what I have. This is more about learning how we make the designs, how to make the dots, seeing if it's something you're interested in, and just having a little creative time. So that's my spiel on the tools. You will also want to have a pencil. I'm going to use a chalk pencil because it can easily be seen on the black background that I have. You can use just a regular old pencil to help make your marks. And then let's talk about making the dots. So I'm going to cut this in half because I'm going to show you something else in a few minutes. All right, so dotting on paper is not my favorite thing to do. So if you're going to practice this on paper, just know it's not the most ideal surface to dot on. But when you're making your dots, and you can grab, if you're going to do this with me, you can grab any tool, grab a spare piece of paper, a junk piece of paper, get your paints out. When you make your dots, you are going to want to dip your paint up over the edge. So you don't want to have it just on the bottom. You can see on this one here, I don't have very much paint on there. On this one, I dipped in well up over that edge. And it feels like you're wasting a lot of paint, but surprisingly, you use a lot less paint for dotting than you would think. So don't worry too much about wasting paint. Having a set of 5 colors in these 2 ounce bottle sizes, I can make 100 designs with just these bottles of paint. So it's not a really paint intensive activity. So you want to make sure it's up over the edge, that you've got plenty of paint on your tool. So I'm just going to redip because if your paint is the right consistency, you'll see it kind of makes a little drip, not a drip. I call it, this is probably unprofessional, but I call it a little nipple on the bottom. You just want it to kind of hang there, but you don't want it to drip off. That's when you know you've got paint as a good consistency. And then when you tap it onto your paper, what you don't want to do is stamp. We're not stamping. You want to give your paper a little kiss. And so you're going to hold it up at a 90-degree angle. You're going to lightly push down. That paint is going to smush out a little bit, and then you lift up. And that'll help you make the perfect dot. So a few things that could go wrong. If you stamp too hard, you're going to get a funny texture on there. Okay, so you can kind of fix that by going back through and just stamping again lightly with some more paint to get rid of that. But you don't want to see that stampy texture. If you don't have enough paint on your tool, you're going to get something like that. Okay, that's not enough paint. For the most part, when we're dotting, and everything that we do tonight, we are going to dip and then dot, and then dip and then dot. You have to re-up your paint each and every time, and that will keep your dotting consistent and the size the same. So we don't want to get different sizes when we're using the same tool. Now down the road, we're going to learn something called walking the dots, and that's when we intentionally let them get a little bit smaller. We're not doing that tonight, but what happens is if you don't re-dip your paint, and you just keep making dots, you have less and less paint on your tool, and so your dots get smaller. So that's not what we want tonight. We want to dip and dot each and every time. As far as the colors, excuse me, that I'm using tonight, I recommended like a fuchsia, magenta, orange, yellow, teal, and blue. Or teal and purple. But in all honesty, you can use any color palette that you want. If you can substitute a red for the magenta. I just chose these because they're bright, they're vibrant, they're easy to teach with, and it doesn't matter what variation. You can have any shade of pink that you want. You can have any shade of orange that you want to use. You can use bright colors, pastel colors, muted colors. These colors will all look great together. Just for reference, if you want to know the exact colors, I've got Decoart Fuchsia Pop, Americana Bright Orange, Americana Bright Yellow, Americana Peacock Teal, and Americana Purple Pizazz. So I got those out in my palettes here to use, so you can get yours out whenever you're ready. The next thing that you're going to want to do, that we're going to want to do together, is find the center. And this is where I'm going to use my chalk pencil. Excuse me, every time I sneeze, I'm going to try to mute so you don't have to hear it. I've been sneezing all day. If you're working on a square, the easiest way to find your center is to get a straight edge. It doesn't have to be a ruler, but for you just to get a straight edge and make a line that goes corner to corner. So it can just be the edge of a paper if you don't have a ruler handy. And you can do that with a pencil. That's the easiest way to find your center. I'm slightly off center on my original design, but that's basically how you find center on a square. For a circle, my little cheat when I'm working with the circle is I'll trace, if I have trouble finding the center, I'll trace it, cut it out. So I've got my circle here. And you don't by any means have to do this if you've got, I know some of you maybe daughters already, maybe you have stencils, maybe the surface that you're using has already marked the center. But this is my little cheat. I like to show people how I do it. So now I've got a circle about the same size. I can fold it in half. Fold it in half again. Clip the little center out, clip the edge out. That's my center. So then I just line it back up. Mark my center that way. Remember, this week is for learning. So if you're a little off center, who cares? Nobody's going to judge you. There are no rules in art. Just go for it. All right, so I think those are my dot basics. If you have questions, you can put them in the comments. I can see the comments. Sometimes I get distracted and don't look up, but I promise I will try to address everything. All right, so I'm going to have my sample. Let's see how I can get set up. Sample here, paint here. Try to be a little organized, right? All right, the one thing I'm going to do before we get started, and I want you to do this with me, is once you have your center, I want you to take your pencil, whichever pencil you're using, and then I want you to decide where your up and down is. So put a straight line, just a little one. I call it my north and my south, right through that center. And then I want to do the same thing in the other direction, my east and my west. And that's going to help me line things up. This is a really easy way to be able to make mandalas without a stencil or without a grid, just using your four corners. And I do this a lot while I'm creating because I'm lazy and I don't like to get my stencils out. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is create our center dot. And the center dot, I am going to use my 12mm tool. That's the largest one I have. I'm all bent out of shape here. Let me reorganize. All right, so here are my sizes in order. 12mm is the biggest one I got. I'm going to use my 12mm tool and my purple paint. Remember, when you dip it in to bring it up over the side, you want to have plenty of paint on there. Hold it up and down at a 90-degree angle and gently give it a little kiss. And there you have your center dot. Then I am going to grab my small stylus tool. I'm going to use 1.5mm. Now you'll see on my surface here, I did lose my lines. You can remark them if you want to put one at the top and the bottom. Or visually, you can just, if you're good at visualizing, you can just visualize them. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use my 1.5mm, and I'm going to stick with that purple paint. And I'm going to dip, and you see I have a lot of paint on there, so you dip right up over the edge of that stylus. I'm going to put one at the top. And I leave just a little room so that my dot has room to have shape. So I come out just a little bit. I'm going to put one at the bottom. One at my east and one at my west. So I'm going to do my 4 cardinal points there. Remember to dip and dot before each one. Then in between, I'm going to add 4 more. So about the halfway mark in between each of those cardinals. So this would be my northeast. I'm going to dip and dot. My southeast, dip and dot. Southwest, and then northwest. So we end up with 8 total. I'm going to change colors, so I wipe off my tool on a paper towel. And in between each one of these dots, I'm using the same tool, the 1.5 millimeter. I'm going to add a teal dot in between each one. Doesn't matter which one you start with. You're just going to add 1 teal dot in between each of these purple all the way around. Alright, so we have our center dot, we have our first row. We're going to move on to the next row. For that, I'm going to go up a size in my stylus. I'm going to go up to the 2.5 millimeters, which is the smaller size on this one. I'm going to stick with my teal paint, but I'm going to move out 1 row. And so wherever I have a purple dot, I'm going to place a teal dot right next to it. So every purple dot on here will have a teal on each side and then next to it. And I'm going to do this all the way around, dip and then dot. And what I try to do is just visually try to space them the same amount of space from the purple dot. So I'll just move out a little and make that dot. I'm going to use the same tool, the same size. I'm going to wipe it off because I'm going to switch colors. In between every teal dot that we just made, I'm going to make a yellow dot. When you're done with that, you can wipe off your tool. Next tool I'm going to use is 8 millimeters. So as far as my tools go, this is kind of my center, my medium-sized tool here, 8 millimeters. And what I'm going to do next, I'm going to line up my surface so that I've got a yellow at the top and the bottom. I'm going to dip into teal. Remember to go up over your edge. And we're going to add 1 teal dot next to each yellow. Now these are a lot bigger, so you need to leave a little more room. So here's my yellow dot right here. Go out so that you know you have enough room, and I'm going to add one right there. I'm going to start with my north and south points and my east and west points, but we're going to add one next to every yellow. So when we're finished, we'll end up with 8 of those. I'm going to switch back to my stylus tool. I'm going to use the larger end, the 3mm end here. This is the largest of my styluses, the largest dot. In between each of these, but close to my little dot here, I'm going to add a yellow dot. So make sure on your stylus you dip up over the edge. We've centered everything so far, but this time, instead of going right in between, I'm going to go up closer to that little dot. So in between every large teal dot, we've got this 3mm yellow dot. Changing the placement of your dots can help you change up a design. So I could have chose to center everything, and that would have been just as pretty, I'm sure. But sometimes the placement where you put it changes how it looks visually. So add one yellow dot in between each of those large teal dots. Yes, Karen, it is sitting on a small Lazy Susan. These are my favorite things ever. I got it on Amazon. It's just, I think people put them up in their cabinets. I don't know why anybody would have one this small. I believe this is a 3-inch Lazy Susan. But it works just perfect when I'm doing dots. Yes, Ailey, there'll be a replay. I'll leave this up in the group so you can watch this later and you'll be able to pause or rewind, fast forward, all that good stuff. I know I have some people watching that have done this quite a bit, and other people who this might be their very first time dotting, so I know we're going to work at different speeds here. I believe also if you're following live, if you feel like I'm working too fast for you, you can pause. You don't have to stick with us live, so if it's frustrating you, I'm moving too fast, you can pause and then work at your own pace. You don't have to feel rushed at all. There's no bonus points for rushing. All right, next up, I'm going to use my 6mm rod, which is the smallest of the rods that I have. And I'm going to use orange paint. And wherever I have that yellow dot that I just created, on the other side, so we kind of put that on the inside of that row, I'm going to add an orange dot towards the outside. So in between the teal, but on the outside of that row. I'm going to do that all the way around, dipping and dotting. And we'll go all the way around. We're going to add 8 of those. I will put a link to that Lazy Susan in the comments for anybody who's interested. You can certainly look, you know, I got mine on Amazon. You can look them up. You don't have to use my link or anything, but that way just so you can see what I'm working on. All right, I am going to switch tools. I'm going to go to my 3mm stylus. That's the largest stylus end that I have. And I'm going to go back to yellow paint. I'm going to add one 3mm dot next to each teal. So we've got this large teal dot right here. So it's in between those oranges next to the teal. And I'm going to go all the way around. This first design that I made here, I called it Just Dots because it is all just dots. We're not doing any fancy lines or swishes or swipes or really anything crazy. It's all just working with the dots. So this is a great one to start with and just practice making those dots. If you're working with me and it's your first time, really give yourself some grace. Anytime you start a new hobby or do something you haven't done before, it takes time to get the muscle memory to feel what you're doing and kind of get into a vibe where you like it. A lot of the daughters that I've seen have different styles. So the way that I do it is not necessarily the way that everybody does things. And so you might find, you know, that you hold your tool a little differently or make your circles a little differently, and that's absolutely fine. This week is all about playing and experimenting and seeing if you like it. All right, so we've got a row of orange and yellow. We are going to create a row of pink. So I'm going to go up a size. I'm going to use my 8mm tool, my fuchsia paint. I'm going to dip in there. Make sure you get up over the edge. Plenty of paint on your tool every time. And next to those yellows, I am going to add a pink dot or a fuchsia dot. So you'll end up with 8 of those. Next, I'm going to switch to my 3mm stylus. That's my largest dot stylus. And we're going to create a little crown. I like to call these crowns on the end. And so what you see here, there's 3 dots. These 3 orange dots are all the same size. And so I find it easier to do the middle dot first and then do the other 2 dots. So I'm going to leave a little bit of space knowing that I'm going to add dots in there. So next to each pink, you're going to make that center dot first, and then a dot to the right, and a dot to the left. And make sure you dip and dot before each one so that they all end up the same size. And that makes a little crown. And then we're going to do that all the way around. Cheryl, I'm so glad you like it. I think dotting is fun too. The last part of the crown, we're going to use the same size, 3mm, is just to add one pink dot right next to our orange dot. So we've got that set of 3. I'm going to use my 3mm tool and add one more dot right at the end of that crown. I'm glad, Heather. It's my calm down time. Some people find it really stressful because they worry so much about making everything perfect, but dotting for me allows me to kind of focus on something, and so I don't focus on the stress of my life or the stress of my day or all the things I need to get done. I just focus on dotting, and it's really relaxing for me. So I love to hear when people love it. We are getting really close to the end of this design, and there's one more element. This looks very different from this right now. We could stop here, and this is absolutely beautiful. So again, just understand, I make these up. There's no right or wrong. You can always change your design. You can go rogue and make dots however you want to. One big element that's missing, you'll see, so here are the dots with the crown. There's a pink dot in the middle there. And so I'm going to go back to my 8mm tool. And in between each of these fuchsia dots is this orange dot. We're going to continue this row. And so I'm going to add 8 more of these to fill in some of that space. And that really changes the look of the design. There really are so many different ways that you can change just even one pattern. Changing 1 or 2 elements really makes it look very, very different. All right, the last element that makes this one different from this is top dots. And when I'm teaching, I like to tell people you really can add top dots wherever you want to. You can go bonkers and you can add a top dot on every single dot we've got here. You can pick and choose which ones that you do. But in order to do top dots, you really do want your first layer to be mostly dry. So you can see here on mine, just kind of based on the reflection, that most of my inner dots are dry enough. They've got a film over them. They've kind of got a matte look, where some of these that are still wet, the ones that I just did, might be too wet to dot. So you can do top dots later versus risking ruining your piece. But top dots is where you just pick a tool and you're going to make a dot on the top And you can layer these up. There are some creators, and I've made some designs where I've added top dots, you know, 3 or 4 layers up. So you can add a layer, let it dry, and then go through and add more dots and let it dry. Oh, Cheryl, I used to do that too. My grandmother was Polish, and we used to decorate Easter eggs. I think in Ukraine they call it pasanki eggs. We're not Ukrainian. I know my grandma called it something different, but we used to do that too. That was a lot of fun. Oh, you just brought a really good memory back for me. All right, so top dots, you kind of want it to be dry. And the other thing about top dots is as you're layering upwards, you want your tool to be smaller so that you can see the color that's underneath. So on this one here, let me erase some of this chalk. My center dot was purple. I have a black top dot on top of that. So you could go down 1 size and use 8 millimeters. You could go down 2 sizes and use 6. I think I'm going to do 6. And so I'm going to get my black paint. You can use any color you want for top dots. You can use some of the bright colors if you want to. So again, you just go up over the edge, fold it straight up and down, give it a little kiss, and there's your top dot. I'm going to use a smaller tool. I'm going to go down to my stylus, my 3 millimeter stylus, and I'm going to add some dots on top of the teal row. So on my sample here, I only added 1. I think today I'm going to add a black dot on all 8 of this large teal row here. Again, this is where you can kind of use your judgment. Remember to dip and dot before every one to keep the size consistent. The last place I added top dots here on my sample was in the pink ring towards the edge. On the dot that does not have the crown, I added top dots. On my sample here, this was a nice big one. I think I'm going to stick with my 3 millimeter tool and just change it a little bit and add 1 dot on every other pink here. So the one without the crown. Mine are still a little wet, so if you're going to do this, be careful. You might need to let it dry a little bit. And you can see, just comparing my 2 different samples here, the one I made tonight with the one that I made before class, is it looks a lot different based on a few different reasons. This one here, I've got more black around the edge, which makes the design look a little tighter. Tonight, maybe I've worked a little wider with my dots, and that's absolutely fine. Remember, there's no right or wrong, okay? Even if you're following somebody else's pattern, you're gonna add your own personal touches to it depending on how you feel. So I made this several nights ago, up to, you know, even a month ago, and I was probably in a different mood, focused a little differently. I have a little more space tonight. That's absolutely fine. I did change some of the dots, some of the sizes of the dots, so you can kind of see, I didn't change the dots in the design as much as the top dots, but even just changing that just slightly changed the look a little bit. So imagine how changing the colors would completely change this design. Or if you decided to add different dots, you could completely change this and make it your own. So this is why I love dotting so much, is you can follow one thing so many different ways. The possibilities really are endless, even with just a dot. So this is the first design here. Now, I told you if you stuck with me till the end, I was going to do a giveaway. I would like to give somebody a $10 Michaels gift card. And so if you will post your picture of your completed work tonight in the group, I am going to pick a winner tomorrow at 7 p.m. my time. So class start time, whatever that is for you. I'm going to pick a winner of somebody, and it's just going to be random. I won't play favorites, but just post in the group a picture of what you created with me tonight or on the replay, and I will pick a winner. We will have a giveaway each day, and so I'll give details with that, with everything that we do. Tomorrow's piece is a recording, so I will post that in the group tomorrow. I'm not sure the exact time because I'm not feeling so good, but I will make sure I get posted before 7 p.m. my time, which is class time. So thank you so much for joining me. If you are not already a follower of my page, of me, I would love if you would just click on my name in the chat and give me a follow or a like. As a creator, that helps me so much. Life as an artist is hard. You know, we've all heard the term starving artist. It is real, y'all. So thank you so much for being here. Give me a follow. I hope you enjoyed this tonight. Come back to find the recording for tomorrow's, and we'll keep on making beautiful things this week. Have a good night, everyone.